Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. We're moving through the Caitanya-caritämrta, Ädi-lilä, here in the live studios in Hythe, Kent, southeast England, UK. It's called Haven, the Haven. Hythe in Roman, Anglo-Saxon, not Roman, but Anglo-Saxon means haven. So we'll get right into it. We're a little bit late today. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur again is glorifying the Sri Caitanya-caritämrta in a very poetic way. He says, in due course, Mahapralaya, devastating floods, will inundate the entire universe. If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then do not neglect to take hold of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or, if you cannot hold all three, then release Bhagavad Gita. If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam, but under no circumstances release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. For if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage, because after it has subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all Shastra. So just see how Srila Prabhupada so strictly follows in the footsteps of his Guru Maharaj. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Caitanya-caritämrta. In a very famous purport at the end of the 25th chapter of Caitanya-caritämrta, he says, everyone must connected with the Krishna consciousness movement must read all the books that have been translated, and then he names them: Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Caitanya-caritämrta. If not, after some time they will simply eat and sleep, fall down, and miss the opportunity for an eternal life of bliss and knowledge. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. So we've reached Adi 6, Glories of Sri Advaita Äcärya. We're starting from text 78. He who is Shesha, Sankarshan, with his thousands of mouths, serves Sri Krishna by assuming 10 forms. 79. Rudra, who is an expansion of Sadashiva and who appears in unlimited universes, is also a guna avatara, qualitative incarnation, and is the ornament of all the demigods in the endless universes. Purport. There are 11 expansions of Rudra, or Lord Shiva. They are as follows: Ajaikapat, Abhibrahma, Ahibradna, Virupakrisha, Raivata, Hara, Bahurupa, Devashrestha, Triyambaka, Savitra, Jayanta, Pinaki, and Aparajita. Besides these expansions, there are 8 forms of Rudra called earth, water, fire, air, sky, the sun, the moon, and Somayaji. Generally, all these Rudras have 5 faces, 3 eyes, and 10 arms. Sometimes it is found that Rudra is compared to Brahma and considered a living entity. But when Rudra is explained to be a partial expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is compared to Shesha. Lord Shiva is therefore simultaneously an expansion of Lord Vishnu and in his capacity for annihilating the creation, one of the living entities. As an expansion of Lord Vishnu, he is called Hara, and he is transcendental to the material qualities. But when he is in touch with Tamoguna, he appears contaminated by the material modes of nature. This is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam and the Brahma Samhita. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, it is stated that Lord Rudra is always associated with the material nature when she is in the neutral, unmanifested stage, but when the modes of material nature are agitated, he associates with material nature from a distance. In the Brahma Samhita, the relationship between Vishnu and Lord Shiva is compared to that between milk and yogurt. Milk is converted into yogurt by certain additives, but although milk and yogurt have the same ingredients, they have different functions. Similarly, Lord Shiva is an expansion of Lord Vishnu, yet because of his taking part in the annihilation of the cosmic manifestation, he is considered to be changed, like milk converted into yogurt. In the Puranas it is found that Shiva appears sometimes from the heads of Brahma and sometimes from the head of Vishnu. The annihilator, Rudra, is born from Sankarshan and is the ultimate fire to burn the whole creation. In the Vayu Purana there is a description of Sadashiva in one of the Vaikuntha planets. That Sadashiva is a direct expansion of Lord Krishna's form for pastimes. It is said that Sadashiva, Lord Shambhu, is an expansion from the Sadashiva in the Vaikuntha planets, Lord Vishnu, and that his consort, Mahamaya, is an expansion of Rama Devi, or Lakshmi. Mahamaya is the origin or birthplace of material nature. Text 80. He also desires only to be a servant of Lord Krishna. Sri Sadashiva always says, I am a servant of Lord Krishna. Text 81. Intoxicated by ecstatic love for Lord Krishna, he becomes overwhelmed and incessantly dances without clothing and sings about Lord Krishna's qualities and pastimes. 82. All the emotions, whether those of father, mother, teacher, or friend, are full of sentiments of servitude. That is the nature of love of Krishna. 83. Lord Krishna, the one master and the Lord of the universe, is worthy of being served by everyone. Indeed, everyone is but a servant of his servants. 84. That same Lord Krishna has descended as Lord Caitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everyone, therefore, is his servant. Text 85. Some accept him, whereas others do not, yet everyone is his servant. One who does not accept him, however, will be ruined by his sinful activities. Purport. When a living entity forgets his constitutional position, he prepares himself to be an enjoyer of the material resources. Sometimes he is also misguided by the thought that service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not absolute engagement. We'll read that again. When a living entity forgets his constitutional position, he prepares himself to be an enjoyer of the material resources. Sometimes he is also misguided by the thought that service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not absolute engagement. In other words, he thinks that there are many other engagements for a living entity besides the service of the Lord. Such a foolish person does not know that in any position he either directly or indirectly engages in activities of service to the Supreme Lord. Actually, if a person does not engage in the service of the Lord, all inauspicious activities encumber him, because service to the Supreme Lord Chaitanya, is the constitutional position of the infinitesimal living entities. Because the living entity is infinitesimal, the allurement of material enjoyment attracts him, and he tries to enjoy matter, forgetting his constitutional position. But when his dormant Krishna consciousness is awakened, he no longer engages in the service of matter, but engages in the service of the Lord. In other words, when one is forgetful of his constitutional position, he appears in the position of the Lord of material nature. In other words, when one is forgetful of his constitutional position, he appears in the position of the Lord of material nature. Even at that time, he remains a servant of the Supreme Lord, but in an unqualified or contaminated state. Text 86. I am a servant of Lord Chaitanya, a servant of Lord Chaitanya. I am a servant of Lord Chaitanya and a servant of his servants. 87. Saying this, Advaita Prabhu dances and loudly sings. Then at the next moment, he quietly sits down. 88. The source of the sentiment of servitude is indeed Lord Balaram. The plenary expansions who follow him are all influenced by that ecstasy. 89. Lord Sankarshan, who was one of his incarnations, always considers himself a devotee. Text 90. Another of his incarnations, Lakshmana, who is very beautiful and opulent, always serves Lord Rama. Text 91. The Vishnu who lies on the causal ocean is an incarnation of Lord Sankarshan, and accordingly the emotion of being a devotee is always present in his heart. 92. Advaita Äcärya is a separate expansion of him. He always engages in devotional service with his thoughts, words, and actions. 93. By his words he declares, I am a servant of Lord Chaitanya. Thus with his mind he always thinks, I am his devotee. 94. With his body he worshipped the Lord by offering Ganges water and tulsi leaves, and by preaching devotional service he delivered the entire universe. 95. Shesha Sankarshan, who holds all the planets on his heads, expands himself in different bodies to render service to Lord Krishna. 96. These are all incarnations of Lord Krishna, yet we always find that they act as devotees. 97. The scriptures call them incarnations as devotees, Bhakta Avatara. The position of being such an incarnation is above all others. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead appears in different incarnations, but his appearance in the role of a devotee is more beneficial to the conditioned souls than the other incarnations with all their opulences. Sometimes a conditioned soul is bewildered when he tries to understand the incarnation of Godhead with full opulence. Lord Krishna appeared and performed many uncommon activities, and some materialists misunderstood him. But in his appearance as Lord Chaitanya, he did not show much of his opulences, and therefore fewer conditioned souls were bewildered. Misunderstanding the Lord, many fools consider themselves incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the result is that after leaving the material body, they enter the species of jackals. Persons who cannot understand the real significance of an incarnation must attain such lower species of life as punishment. Conditioned souls who are puffed up by false egoism and who try to become one with the Supreme Lord become Mayavadis. Text 98. Lord Krishna is the source of all incarnations, and all others are his parts, or partial incarnations. We find that the whole and the part behave as superior and inferior. 99. The source of all incarnations has the emotions of a superior when he considers himself the master, and he has the emotions of an inferior when he considers himself a devotee. Purport. A fraction of a particular thing is called a part, and that from which the fraction is distinguished is called the whole. Therefore, the fraction or part is included within the whole. The Lord is the whole, and the devotee is the part or fractional part. That is the relationship between the Lord and the devotee. There are also gradations of devotees who are calculated as greater or lesser. When a devotee is great, he is called Prabhu, and when he is lesser, he is called Bhakta, or a devotee. The supreme whole is Krishna, and Baladev and all Vishnu incarnations are his fractions. Lord Krishna is therefore conscious of his superior position, and all Vishnu incarnations are conscious of their positions as devotees. Text 100. The position of being a devotee is higher than that of equality with Lord Krishna, for the devotees are dearer to Lord Krishna than his own self. Purport. The conception of oneness with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is inferior to that of eternal service to the Lord because Lord Krishna is more affectionate to devotees than to his personal self. In Srimad Bhagavatam 9.4.68, the Lord clearly says, Sadhavo hridayam mayam sadhunam hridayam tvaham madanyat te najananti naham tebhyo manag api. The devotees are my heart, and I am the heart of my devotees. My devotees do not know anyone but me. Similarly, I do not know anyone but my devotees. This is the intimate relationship between the Lord and his devotees. Text 101. Lord Krishna considers his devotees greater than himself. Shall I repeat that? Oh, okay. Lord Krishna considers his devotees greater than himself. In this connection, the scriptures provide an abundance of evidence. Text 102. Natata me priyatama atmayo nishankaraha nachasankarshano nastrir naivatma chayata bhavan. O Uddhava, neither Brahma, nor Shankara, nor Sankarshan, nor Lakshmi, nor even my own self is as dear to me as you. Purport. This is this text is from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:14-15. Text 103. The sweetness of Lord Krishna is not to be tasted by those who consider themselves equal to Krishna. It is to be tasted only through the sentiment of servitude. Text 104. This conclusion of the revealed scriptures is also the realization of experienced devotees. Fools and rascals, however, cannot understand the opulences of devotional emotions. Purport. When a person is liberated in the sarupya form of liberation, having a spiritual form exactly like Vishnu, it is not possible for him to relish the relationship of Krishna's personal associates in their exchanges of mellows. The devotees of Krishna, however, in their loving relationships with Krishna, sometimes forget their own identities. Sometimes they think themselves one with Krishna and yet relish still greater transcendental mellows in that way. People in general, because of their foolishness only, try to become masters of everything, forgetting the transcendental mellow of servitorship to the Lord. When a person is actually advanced in spiritual understanding, however, he can accept the transcendental servitorship of the Lord without hesitation. Text 105 and 106. Baladev, Lakshmana, Advaita Äcärya, Lord Nityananda, Lord Shesha, and Lord Sankarshan taste the nectarian mellows of the transcendental bliss of Lord Krishna by recognizing themselves as being his devotees and servants. They are all mad with that happiness, and they know nothing else. Text 107. What to speak of others? Even Lord Krishna himself becomes thirsty to taste his own sweetness. 108. He tries to taste his own sweetness, but he cannot do so without accepting the emotions of a devotee. Purport. Lord Krishna wanted to relish the transcendental mellow of a devotee, and therefore he accepted the role of a devotee by appearing as Sri Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore Lord Krishna accepted the position of a devotee and descended in the form of Lord Chaitanya, who is complete in every respect. Text 110. He tastes his own sweetness through the various emotions of a devotee. I have formerly explained this conclusion. Purport. Lord Chaitanya, who is known as Sri Gaur Hari, is complete in relishing all the different mellows, namely neutrality, servitorship, fraternity, paternal affection, and conjugal love, parental affection, I'll read it again. Lord Chaitanya, who is known as Sri Gaur Hari, is complete in relishing all the different mellows, namely neutrality, servitorship, fraternity, parental affection, and conjugal love. By accepting the ecstasy of different grades of devotees, he is complete in relishing all the mellows of these relationships. Text 111. All the incarnations are entitled to the emotions of devotees. There is no higher bliss than this. Purport. All the different incarnations of Lord Vishnu have the right to play the roles of servitors of Lord Krishna by descending as devotees. When an incarnation gives up the understanding of his godhood and plays the part of a servitor, he enjoys a greater taste of transcendental mellows than when he plays the part of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 112. The original Bhakta Avatara is Sankarshan. Sri Advaita is counted among such incarnations. Purport. Although Sri Advaita Prabhu belongs to the Vishnu category, he displays servitorship to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as one of his associates. When Lord Vishnu appears as a servitor, he is called an incarnation of a devotee of Lord Krishna. Sri Sankarshan, who is an incarnation of Vishnu in the spiritual sky, known as the Greater Vaikuntha, is the chief of the quadruple incarnations and is the original incarnation of a devotee. Lord Mahavishnu, who is lying in the causal ocean, is a manifestation of Sankarshan. He is the original personality of Godhead who glances over the material and efficient causes of the cosmic manifestation. Advaita Prabhu is accepted as an incarnation of Mahavishnu. All the plenary manifestations of Sankarshan are indirect expansions of Lord Krishna. That consideration also makes Advaita Prabhu an eternal servitor of Gaura Krishna. Therefore, he is accepted as a devotee incarnation. Text 113. The glories of Advaita Äcärya are boundless, for his sincere vibrations brought about Lord Chaitanya's descent upon this earth. 114. He liberated the universe by preaching Sankirtan. Thus the people of the world received the treasure of love of Godhead through the mercy of Sri Advaita. 115. Who can describe the unlimited glories of Advaita Äcärya? I write here as much as I have known from great authorities. Text 116. I offer my obeisances 10 million times to the lotus feet of Sri Advaita Äcärya. Please do not take offense at this. 117. Your glories are as fathomless as millions of oceans and seas. Speaking of its measure is a great offense indeed. All glories to Sri Advaita Äcärya, all glories to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the superior Lord Nityananda. 119. Thus in 2 verses I have described the truth concerning Advaita Äcärya. Now, O devotees, please hear about the 5 truths, Pancha Tattva. Shri Rupa Raghunatha Padiyara Ash, Caitanya-caritämrta, Kahe Krishna Das. Praying at the lotus feet of Shri Rupa and Shri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Shri Caitanya-caritämrta, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Shri Caitanya-caritämrta, Ädi-lilä, 6th chapter, describing the glories of Shri Advaita Äcärya. Jai. Shri Advaita Prabhu ki jai. Mahavishnu ki jai. Or Sankarshan ki jai. Sheshanag ki jai. Or Premanandi. Jai Shri Krishna ki jai. Haribo. Jai Lord Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Okay. Now this chapter, the 7th chapter of the Ädi-lilä, is entitled Lord Chaitanya in 5 Features. When Prabhupada first published a book about, as an excerpt from the Caitanya-caritämrta, that book was entitled Lord Chaitanya in 5 Features, and it was this chapter of the Caitanya-caritämrta. And then later he published a larger volume which had the chapter 7 in it, the first part of Caitanya-caritämrta. Then later than that he published the full 2-volume of the Ädi-lilä of Caitanya-caritämrta. And then after that he had that large marathon, 2-month marathon, and he did all 15 final chapters, or the 15 final volumes rather. At that time there were 17 volumes, now there are 9 volumes. So this Lord Chaitanya in 5 Features is a very special chapter. The reason he chose to do that was because there's a very deep section in which Lord Chaitanya enlightens Prakashananda Saraswati Thakur, the great Mayavadi philosopher, and dismantles the Mayavad philosophy in front of all the Vaishnavas in Varanasi. So this is a very special chapter for all of us. I'll read the first part of it and then we'll move on. Chapter 7, Lord Chaitanya in 5 features. Text 1. Let me first offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the ultimate goal of life for one bereft of all possessions in this material world, and is the only meaning for one advancing in spiritual life. Thus let me write about his magnanimous contribution of devotional service in love of God. Agatye kagatim natva hinartha dikasadakam Sri Chaitanyam likyate sya prema bhakti vadanyata. Let me first offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the ultimate goal of life for one bereft of all possessions in this material world, and is the only meaning for one advancing in spiritual life. Thus let me write about his magnanimous contribution of devotional service in love of God. Purport. A person in the conditioned stage of material existence is in an atmosphere of helplessness, but the conditioned soul, under the illusion of Maya or the external energy, thinks that he is completely protected by his country, society, friendship, and love, not knowing that at the time of death, none of these can save him. The laws of material nature are so strong that none of our material possessions can save us from the cruel hands of death. In the Bhagavad Gita 13.9 it is said, Janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha doshanudarshanam. One who is actually advancing must always consider the 4 principles of miserable life, namely birth, death, old age, and disease. One cannot be saved from all these miseries unless he takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is therefore the only shelter for all conditioned souls. An intelligent person, therefore, does not put his faith in any material possessions, but completely takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Such a person is called a kinchana, or one who does not possess anything in this material world. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is also known as a kinchana gochara, for he can be achieved by a person who does not put his faith in material possessions. Therefore, for the fully surrendered soul, who has no material possessions on which to depend, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the only shelter. Everyone depends upon dharma, religiosity. Everyone depends upon dharma, religiosity, artha, economic development, kama, sense gratification, and ultimately moksha, salvation. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, due to his magnanimous character, can give more than salvation. Therefore, in this verse, the words hinarthadikasadakam indicate that although by material estimation, salvation is of a quality superior to the inferior interests of religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification, above salvation, there is the position of devotional service and transcendental love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the bestower of this great benediction. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Prema Pumarto Mahan, love of Godhead is the ultimate benediction for all human beings. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, the author of Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, therefore first offers his respectful obeisances unto Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu before describing the magnanimity in bestowing love of Godhead. Okay, we'll stop here. That's a very nice stopping place. We're going to start right into this chapter starting tomorrow with Jai Jai Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Tanhada Charanashrita Ye Badadanya. Okay, we'll stop here. And time for the delightful time of reflections on what we've read. Try to stick to the subject, please.
Something from Gopal Roy Das.
Hey Gopal Roy, Haribol Gopal.
He says, everyone in the material world is trying to be God, but God wants to become a servant, for there is no higher bliss than this. When will I get rid of my propensity to control and enjoy? Should we similarly see all expansions of Krishna as servants of the Lord, or rather see them as supreme enjoyers, also like Krishna?
No. Everyone except for Krishna is a servant. So if we want to attain the highest consciousness, then we should see everyone as a servant of Krishna. Then we automatically want to serve them because they are servants of Krishna. And the important point, the essence of this last reading, is that even Advaita-charya, even Sankarshan, all the expansions of Krishna, they see themselves as servants of Krishna. That's the superior position. Not only that, but the servant of Krishna experiences more ecstasy than Krishna in the ultimate stage. So no, we don't want to see the servants of Krishna as Krishna. Let me hear again what he said. I got on the right track, and then maybe I got off the track.
He says, should we similarly see all expansions of Krishna as servants of the Lord, or rather see them as supreme enjoyers, also like Krishna?
Well, this is a matter of taste. This is a matter of taste according to our qualification and our level of advancement in devotional service. In the ultimate stage, there aren't these divisions of master and higher and lower and all these things. We just see Krishna as our dear one, either as our friend or as our master, or our son, or our lover, or husband. This is Krishna consciousness. This is pure Krishna consciousness. In material world, we have to see distinctions, especially those of us who want to preach Krishna consciousness. We shouldn't artificially try to put ourselves in a position where we can see everyone equally, or see everyone as the supreme enjoyer like Krishna, because then where would be the nectar of preaching Krishna consciousness? We saw everyone else as the supreme enjoyer, then where would be the nectar of the mellows, of the varieties of mellows? We have to have all of us need a variety of relationships. We need to have the relationship of serving the superior, that's called seva. We need the relationship of having equal relationships and friendship. And we need to serve others in terms of doya, or compassion. We have to give compassion. We give seva to our superiors, and we give doya to those less fortunate than us. So that is the vision of a preacher. That's the Madhyam Adhikari. Even the Uttima Adhikari, who preaches, he sees those distinctions. That's described so many places. 11th canto Bhagavatam, that the Madhyam Adhikari sees Krishna, he sees the devotees, he sees Krishna and he loves Krishna, serves Krishna, he sees the devotees and makes friends with them. He sees the inferiors and gives compassion to them. Go ahead.
He writes, so see expansions like Vishnu and Nrsingadev as servants of Krishna?
No, you worship them as the Lord. They're thinking themselves as servants of Krishna, but we see them as Krishna, because they're Vishnu Tattva. Our position is to see the Vishnu Tattva as our masters, as our Lord. And then we get to relish, by doing that, we get to relish the superior position of being the servant. We taste mellows that are higher than being the Lord. So he's the supreme enjoyer, but the persons who enjoy him, the persons who serve him without any motivation except to please him, they taste something higher than the supreme enjoyer. Of course, these things are these things you can't force yourself to see. They come from many years in general, they come from many years of learning how to serve and learning, how to perceive everything through the eyes of this knowledge that we've been given by Srila Prabhupada. And as we become mature, as we assimilate the knowledge, then all these subtle intricacies will be understood in the proper perspective and more precisely, so that we won't wonder about this and wonder about that, wonder about this. We'll do it. We'll feel it. We'll know what to do. We'll know what not to do. We'll know, the right feelings to have and perceptions to have, because we'll be in that position of love of God. But in the meantime, yes, we do have to be careful about how we treat others, how we treat our superiors. We should see our guru as our representative of God, and therefore offer him the same respect as God, even though he's not God, but he's the servitor God to us, for us. In this way, we are trained in the service attitude. And when that service attitude becomes mature, if you just stay in it as a bhakta, no matter what stage you're in, you stay on the tree of devotional service, then you become ripe. The secret is to keep ourselves always constantly connected to the tree of devotional service, which we'll read about in a few chapters. The loving tree of Lord Chaitanya's devotional tree of devotional service. Maybe I'm just getting off the track. I don't know. I'm just rambling now. Thanks for taking us in that direction, Gopal Roy.
From Vilas Manjari Dasi.
Hare Krishna, Vilas Manjari. You usually don't show up at this time down there, down under.
She says, I really appreciated this verse. Quote, the sweetness of Lord Krishna is not to be tasted by those who consider themselves equal to Krishna. It is to be tasted only through the sentiment of servitude. End quote.
Yes. Well spoken.
A little more. She says, my reflection, this really demonstrates what bhakti has to offer over the impersonal yoga path. Everyone is looking for the sweetest relationship. It also makes me think about the importance for those on the path of bhakti to focus on service rather than what is my relationship, as discussed in the last few days.
Yes.
I recently heard a nice statement in a class. To understand Krishna's sweetness, you first have to understand Krishna's greatness.
Yes. Because you can't love someone without knowing them. Sometimes they have lusty affairs and they don't really know each other. They just have sex and then have a one-night stand and they're off to someone else, like rabbits or mosquitoes or flies. They do the same thing. But to really love someone, one has to know them deeply. And therefore, because Krishna is the deepest person, it's not so easy to know him deeply. Therefore, to have actually pure love of God, you have to know him. You have to know who he is. And then your love becomes deeper and deeper. And eventually, when you come under the control of Yoga Maya in the spiritual world, then you'll forget his opulence and his greatness and all the knowledge that you have about him, and you'll just love him as a friend, like I said, or a childlike figure, as in a parental relationship, or the lover, of course, loving relationship. Without that knowledge, it's there. The knowledge is there always, even in Goloka Vrindavan. They know who Krishna is perfectly. But the sweetness of their love for Krishna is so powerful that it covers that reverential feeling of knowing that he's God. Yeah, so the sweetness is in the personal relationship and in serving. That's the basis. Service is the basis of all devotional service. We may analyze which is more intimate service, but when you're in the spiritual world and you have a service of being a servant, a formal servant of Krishna, there's no question of thinking that you're inferior to the gopis who have more intimate service to Krishna, because they're in their natural position, they're in their constitutional position, they're happy. Completely happy, ecstatically happy. And even those who are in Vaikuntha, who are in love with Krishna in an opulent, awe and reverential mood, they're happy where they are. They don't think they're inferior. As a matter of fact, they sometimes think they're superior to the Brajvasis or the Golokavasis. When Gopakumar ends up in Vaikuntha on his way to Goloka, there's a discussion between different moods of the Vaikuntha-vasis. And some of them are thinking that he's improper the way he acts, Gopakumar, because he acts like a cowherd boy in Goloka, because that's who he is. And then they see their Vishnu, acting toward him like familiar. And they're not used to that. So therefore they say, oh, there's something wrong here. And some of them really object, and some of them say, no, it's okay. We're with the Supreme Lord, and this whole other thing is also okay. And then some are saying, no, this is better, so we should offer respect. So all those different mentalities are also there, in Vaikuntha. So there's always varieties of flavors and tastes. It's not that it's not like devotees are like cookie cut, into one place and another and act like a robot in that particular place because that's how people act. No, it's the natural position of each soul to act according to their relationship with Krishna. And not everyone has the same relationship with Krishna. Otherwise, just imagine, okay? Just imagine for a second. Goloka Vrindavan and the gopis are the highest. Just imagine. So therefore, everyone should aspire to be gopis. because it's the most intimate, highest. So then ultimately, everyone becomes a gopi, and there's just Krishna and gopis, and there's nothing else. There's no clouds, there's no trees, there's no deer, there's no Yamuna, there's no cowherd boys, there's no cows and calves, there's no villagers, there's nothing else, just gopis and Krishna. Do you think that Krishna can enjoy like that? Or do you think that the gopis can enjoy like that? I know that that's a very exaggerated, hypothetical, ridiculous thing to say, but that's kind of, in a sense, what immature devotees who were trying to be the highest when they aspire to be gopis, how they kind of perceive things. They look down at others because others are inferior. But the gopis don't look down on anyone. They think everyone else is superior. So the more intimate you become as a servant, the least you think that you're elevated. That's the nature of advancement in devotional service. The more advanced you become, the least advanced you think you are. This is the mystical, magical, inconceivable mystery of devotional service. It's completely opposite to material consciousness and material life. The things that we aspire for in the material world, they have no interest in the spiritual world. They have no interest in those things. But all those things are provided unlimitedly more than here without any endeavor at all. Therefore, it's foolish to stay here in this material world. It's foolish to be attached to material possessions. We're attached to what we have because we want to serve Krishna nicely. We try to get all the money in the world and give it to Krishna. Sometimes devotees are very opulent positions. Sometimes they're very simple position without any possessions. But those who are giving everything that they have to Krishna, they are the most renounced. So we can't evaluate, in a mechanistic, formulaic sense, all these different relationships. Well, if I'm like this, then I should do this, or if I'm like this, I have to do this. No, everyone in the spiritual world is spontaneously in love with Krishna according to their relationship. As a servant in different varieties. That's the spiritual world. Hare Krishna.
Something from Daitari Haridas.
Daitari Hari. Who gave him that name? Ask him. Who gave you that name, Daitari Hari? It's a nice name. Unusual name.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj. I don't get a chance to watch your readings live every night because of different services, but always try to catch up the next day. It is a privilege to get to be guided through the CC by you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Daitari Hari. Who gave you that nice name? We'll see if you'll answer.
So, Devamrita Maharaj.
Devamrita Maharaj. Oh, you must be from Wales. Sorry, I'm an old man now. My memory is going. I can't always remember. Now I'm remembering who you are. Hare Krishna Daitari Hari. No wonder you have such a wonderful name. You have such a wonderful Guru, Maharaj.
This is his reflection and question.
Hmm.
He says, I find myself more interested in hearing the knowledge of how Krishna's expansions create and maintain the universe, and feel awkward when hearing about more intimate details of Krishna's dealings. I feel like it's so far away, and as though I'm too offensive to ever understand it properly. How do we develop faith in the goal, even when we're so far away from being even able to comprehend the platform we're supposed to be aspiring for?
Continue to aspire for the right thing. According to the platform you're on, you should aspire to assimilate, keep assimilating, then you will naturally be taken to the position of being able to be with Krishna properly. Because unless you know those details about Krishna's opulences before you enter into spontaneous affection with Krishna, then you will see him in the wrong way, and you will imitate, and you will try to engage in sense gratification with Krishna. On the other hand, if a person's advanced in Krishna consciousness and doesn't see the opulences so much, they see them, but their love covers that opulence, then they get everything. They get everything. So your question is, if you are still attracted to understanding the details of the creation and how the Vishnu expansions of Krishna are creating and maintaining and destroying the universe, then go deep into that. That's also Krishna consciousness. It's not that that's not Krishna consciousness. That's an important part of Srimad Bhagavatam. Kapila came to deliver it himself. The Supreme Personality of Godhead came to deliver it himself. It's important because it's important to know these things, because there's so many people who put forward false arguments and can mislead us into the improper, mentality, and into thinking that we are, superior, and that we are, the goal is to be God and to be one with God in an impersonal sense. So we need that sambandha gyan. This is called sambandha gyan. We need to understand deeply the relationship between ourselves as parts of Krishna, marginal energy, and the material energy, and the internal energy, and Krishna, the source of all of those energies. We need to understand, intimately, deeply. Not intimately, seriously, and with realization. It's not that that knowledge goes away. When you hear the residents of Vrindavan sometimes offering prayers to Krishna, even the gopis, when they offer their prayers to Krishna, sometimes they say those kinds of things, that you are the source of everything, and you are this or you are that. They understand all those things. So what I'm trying to say is that there's 3 topics in the Vedic scriptures: Sambandha Gyan, Abhideya, and Prayojana. Sambandha means to understand one's relationship, the relationship of the energies, how it all fits together, to the point where we can see it by just looking through the knowledge. It's not like textbook knowledge. We're not just trying to gather information, content. We're trying to see with knowledge what's going on here. And then Abhideya, until we become fixed in a sambandha gyan, we won't know how to act. And then when you come to the point of learning how to act, with all that knowledge, and eventually with Krishna and Krishna's devotees, in a spontaneous way, then we come to the platform of Abhideya, knowing how to act with Krishna, and then eventually Prayojana, and that's when when our original love for Krishna is awakened within our hearts. It's not that it's something artificial to us that we have to, it's like cramming for an exam or something. Then you cram knowledge in there, then take the test, and then you get qualified. It's not like that. It's assimilation of the knowledge. When you assimilate the sambandha gyan, and then the abhideya, and then the prayojana, then you're eligible to be with Krishna. I mean, like in the material world, an example, if you were brought into the room where a very, very big person was, the prime minister of, some country or some, of course nowadays even the prime ministers are not some royalty or some big person. You don't just, stumble in and say whatever you want to say, and you have to be careful when you're with, personalities who are larger than you, very much greater than you. So to be with Krishna is not an easy thing, Just like when you read the prayers in the Bhagavatam, and you see the hearts of the devotees when you read these prayers to the Lord. And after a while, you'll be able to see the different moods that they're in and how it's reflected in what they say to the Lord in order to please Him. And the Lord is pleased by the varieties of things that are said from His loving servants to Him. It's not that He's only pleased by the gopis. Lord Chaitanya, even after he took sannyas, when Lord Nityananda tricked him into coming back to Advaita Acharya's house so they could be with him just for a few more days before he actually went off as a sannyasi, they brought Mother Sachi there, and he came in front of his mother and he fell down at her feet. And he said, "Oh, Ma," he said, "this body belongs to you. I'm such a fool. I'm just running off like a madman and taking sannyas. But whatever you want me to do, I'll do. You want me to stop this? You want me to come back? Whatever you want me to do." And she said, No, you can't do that. You've already taken sannyas. That would ruin your reputation. No, you must. And then he said, "But you should go to Jagannath Puri and stay there. Don't go to Vrindavan, because I'll at least be able to hear about you and know about you, feel connected with you through that remembrance." And because the devotees from here in Bengal, they go back and forth from Puri all the time to go to the temple, and they'll see you. Next. So don't worry, that you're so interested in the third canto of the Bhagavatam. Study the third canto of the Bhagavatam and be happy. But just keep going. Don't just stay there. Keep going, and then you'll want to hear the whole Bhagavatam. When Krishna and the gopis are roaming through the forest in Vrindavan enjoying, sometimes the gopis will ask Krishna to tell them stories from the Bhagavatam. Stories about Prahlad Maharaj, a story about Dhruva Maharaj, different stories. It's not that they only want to think about one thing. This is neophyte, immature devotees. They only want to think about being gopis, they only think about the past and the gopis. But when you're actually there, they'll want to hear all kinds of things about Krishna. In fact, that's the test of Krishna consciousness, that everything you hear about Krishna puts you in ecstasy. At least while we're in this stage of being in the material world and coming up in devotional life. Maybe when you're in Goloka Vrindavan and you never go out of Vrindavan. Krishna never goes out of Vrindavan in the spiritual world. But we can't artificially be in that position. Okay, next. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for those lovely questions and lovely reflections. I live for these moments when I can be with you and just hear and relish Caitanya-caritämrta with you. I thank you so much. And please, stay safe, stay well, and stay happy, even in the midst of this chaos that the world's going through right now, by keeping yourself fixed at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his eternal associates, the Panchatattva. And we'll hear all about them tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Sri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai. Samabeta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to all the devotees of the Lord ki jai. See you tomorrow, same time, same place, same station. Hare Krishna.